you could just tell us who you are.
I'm LaVerne Kautz.
You've known several people in the area that have died of cancer and other radiation-related illnesses. When did you first start becoming curious about the rate of cancer deaths or radiation-related
Well, the first
deaths?
article I read was in 1971. I read it in a magazine about radiation and the effects that they were worried about in this magazine. And then I lost a dear friend in 1966. And, well, people were just dying pretty fast. So Karen Dornsteele had an article in the paper, in the Spokesman Review in 1986, March of 1986. And she listed all the emissions that had taken place from Hanford. And out of curiosity, I went and checked back on the deaths because Dr. Goffman says that 10 years after an emission, we would lose people to cancer.
These were atmospheric emissions?
Yes.
Through the stacks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I went back and checked on our deaths, and they were increasing 10 years after each emission.
And were they deliberate emissions, as far as you know, or accidental emissions?
Some were accidental, but the green run was deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
And that was done on December the 2nd, 1949.
Mm-hmm.
And 40 years after that emission, which Dr. Goffman says our cancer will peak 40 years after a group of people have been irradiated. And 40 years after that emission, we had 70 people here in Ritzville with cancer. And of those 70, 17 died.
And from what you know about the rate of cancer, was that number much higher than the average rate or the normal rate of cancer?
Yes, definitely, because we were losing on an average of 2 annually before Hanford started up.
Mm-hmm.
And now our average has increased to 11 annually.
Mm-hmm. How many people do you know of in the area that have actually died of some cancer that could be attributable to
Right close to
living downwind?
700.
700 since 1943.
43. Yeah, I've been keeping track, and I'm making a list of the people that have died of cancer, the type of cancer, and their age when they died, for a physicist at the University of Portland.
So roughly 5 or 6 times greater than what would be considered a normal cancer death rate.
Right.
Yeah.
At 3 Mile Island, I think the cancer rate had increased to 7. We're here it's 11. And 3 Mile Island had a lot less radiation dumped on it than we've had dumped on us. One of the fellows that's doing research on it claims that we had over 6 million curies of radiation dumped on us.
And of the people that have died, many of them have been family members or friends, close friends?
I have lost 26 cousins, 7 aunts, and my mother, all downwind of Hanford. And these aunts, some of them were step aunts, and some of them were aunts by marriage. And some of the cousins were not blood relations, but they were, so it's not genetic.
How have people reacted to this over the years in Ritzville? I mean, it's a farming community. Now you were saying that there are a lot of retired farmers living in the area. Of your generation, how have they reacted to this information?
It's happened. So what can we do about it? That's what most of them think. And now since the atom bomb is spread to India and Pakistan, I don't know what we can do. We should have never, ever, ever made the atom bomb.
Well, of the deliberate exposures that have happened, the green run being the first that we know about, why do you think they have done this? How do you explain the mentality that went into this?
Well, I think it was an ego trip for the scientists and our politicians, is my own feeling on it. I mean, look at this horrendous weapon we have developed. Maybe I'm cynical and bitter, I don't know, but I've lost so many loved ones that I could very well be.
Of the the younger generation around here today? Are they worried about Hanford? Or do they ignore it?
Yes, I think our kids are worried about it, and now we are seeing deaths in our younger people that were subjected to the radiation in the 50s. There were a lot of heavy releases in the 50s, and now we're losing kids in their 40s. It's reached the 40-year peak.
When you became aware of the connection between all these deaths and the Hanford nuclear reservation and the fact that the Department of Energy and before that the Atomic Energy Commission were not telling the truth about what was going on, did it surprise you? How did you react to that? I mean, was it? I mean, I
Yes,
imagine
it
most people in the
surprised
area.
me. I mean, we were taught to believe in our government and everything that they told us, but I don't anymore.
There's been a lot of livestock in the area that's been affected over the years.
Yes. We had a lot of what they call crooked calves, and they're blaming this on to the lupin. But we had on an average of 200 cattle a year that we ran, and we never had a problem with crooked calves, and we had a lot of lupin in our pastures. And we quit raising cattle in 1959. But I feel that any of your green plants readily pick up radiation like a magnet, in fact. And lupin is one that really picks it up, so much so that in Russia they were going to plant the lupin to pick up the radiation and then bury it.
Around Chernobyl or?
I don't know whether it just said in Russia on this article that I read. And they released so much radiation that they were checking the soil erosion in the hills, in the Plus Hills, the amount of cesium-137 that was on top of the hills and what had washed down into the coulees. And now if there was that much cesium-137 released, which is a radionuclide that gets into every cell in the body, why, I feel that this is probably what's causing our crooked calves, because it's done damage in France and some of the countries over there.
Have other farmers in the area reacted similarly to that news or to that connection over the years? I mean, I know that they've had crooked calves. Other farms have had crooked calves.
Yes, there have been quite a few farmers with crooked calves. And the one farmer sent this article to WSU that's supposedly doing this research on the lupin. And the fellow that's doing the research called him and said, you know, when I started reading this article, I thought this person was crazy. He says, but the more I read, the more I got to thinking it could be. So that's all I've heard.
Why the Department of Energy or the Atomic Energy Commission would do these sorts of things deliberately to the population in the area? You mentioned ego before.
Yes, I feel it was ego of the scientists, and I feel it's money for the Department of Energy and the nuclear industry. All the money they have wasted building nuclear plants, and now to clean up the mess they created, could have gone to build a lot of highways, a lot of bridges, and a lot of schools. There's been an awful lot of money wasted on the nuclear industry. And for what?
Do you think the situation at Hanford is getting better at all today?
No, I don't. They're still getting the dickens for not getting in and getting things cleaned up. There have been articles in the paper just recently because they're not doing anything down there. I have people that work and know people down there, and they say all they're doing is reading magazines and books and playing cards. But that's a mess that can't be cleaned up. It's in the air, it's in the water, it's in the soil. Just yesterday there was an article in where the plutonium is going down into the wells.
The drinking wells?
Yeah.
On the reservation itself, or in the Tri-Cities, or?
Out on the nuclear reservation.
Yeah, one of the people we've interviewed already mentioned that it was almost like a god complex at one point. Originally, there were a lot of scientists out there trying to make this bomb because they thought they were, uh, working as good patriots and involved in the war effort, and they wanted to help, fight for democracy and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And after the war ended, the Cold War began, and there was this cloak of secrecy that got deeper and deeper,
Right.
or heavier and heavier, I guess. And it became almost like the people out there were untouchable, and they didn't have to be accountable for anything.
Right.
Have you?
And that's when the most damage was done, was during the Cold War. That's when all the emissions and everything took place
Mhm.
that did the most damage to us, I feel.
Mhm. If you could talk to any of those people that you think were involved during that period, what would you say to them?
Well, I talked to one of the fellows that was an engineer down there. He graduated from school here, and I said, "You fellows knew what you were doing to us as early as 1943, didn't you?" And he said, "Yes." So why were they doing it? Money.
That's what he said.
No, that's what I'm saying, is
Mm.
money. These fellows, some of those fellows working for the nuclear industry are drawing six-figure salaries. And they're not about to let anything happen to their nuclear industry, regardless of what it's doing to the people. That's just my opinion, but,
There are a lot of big houses in the Tri-Cities.
well, a lot of big salaries anyway. I
Yeah.
don't know what they're doing with their salaries, but there's a lot of big salaries. And a lot of new homes being built down there.
In this immediate area in Ritzville, you were to tell me again about the number of deaths in the town of Ritzville,
In the town of Ritzville, there have been a little over 300.
and from what you've been able to determine from the obituaries, that these are cancers that could easily be connected to the kind of exposures that came
Right.
from
Right,
Hanford.
because your radiation causes brain cancers, lung cancers, and sex organ cancer. Those are the most prominent ones. And we've had an awful lot of brain tumors, blood conditions, blood diseases, a lot of prostate cancer, a lot of ovarian cancer, a lot of breast cancer. My mother died of breast cancer. And then the family that I was telling you about at Lynn that was affected, the whole family practically. The father with the melanoma cancer that he's had removed from his head, and the mother with mastectomy, the oldest daughter with two thumbs removed, or born with two thumbs on each hand, and the boy with the encephalitis, and a grandson 3 years old that died of kidney cancer, liver cancer, and now they have a grandson that has acute lymphocytic leukemia. 24-year-old grandson. All in one family. Now that's heartbreaking. And it isn't until you get involved with these people and see how much they're suffering and see them dying of cancer, it makes you angry to think that our government did this to us. And I say they knew before they ever made the atomic bomb what it was going to do.
What makes you say that? What did you discover in your
Enrico
study?
Fermi and Robert Oppenheimer, who helped make the bomb, had talked about poisoning the Germans' food with fission radioactivity before they ever made the bomb. This was in 1943. So they knew what the fission and the low-level radiation would do.
With over 700 deaths, did you say, in this
In the area.
in this area of the whole farming community surrounding Ritzville since 1943?
Right.
Those are 700 deaths that you know about.
Right. And I know I haven't got them all. I know I missed some.
I imagine a number of people have moved away during that period.
Yes, and some of them that have moved away are dying of cancer.
Mhm.
I've heard of several of them.
With those deaths, I wonder how many people have actually had cancer or some sort of radiation-related illness and haven't actually died. If you guess, the numbers would be quite a bit higher.
I know we have some brain tumors. that are still living.
Mhm.
They haven't died.
If that many has died, I imagine those
Yes.
that have been suffering in some degree or another
Right.
would be a much higher number.